Hello, Emily.
All right.
All right, we're good.
We are recording.
All right.
Look at that.
All right, good afternoon. It is Saturday, February 18th, 2023. We are at the Salomon Calhoun Center, and I am here interviewing
Lillian Prescott.
And this is Emily Santiana interviewing, and
Rose Capo.
all right, so first I wanted to kind of ask, do you have any connections to Mr. Calhoun or anything of that sort?
No, I voted at the Salomon Calhoun Center in the past, and I've done some intern work at some summer camps here before, but no, to the actual man, no. To the center, yeah, as a citizen. But.
Okay, perfect. So as far as the event here today, who are you here with, or who are you here to represent?
Yeah, I'm with the Jimenez Facio House Museum. We're on Avila Street in St. Augustine. I'm the tour and programming specialist there.
Oh, that's really cool.
Thank you.
What kind of work does the museum do, and what does it focus on?
Yeah, so we are a house museum. We were built in, I say we, I was not built in 1798, but the house was, and we tell a really rich history, 225 years this year. So we start in the second Spanish period when Andres Jimenez built the property. He ran it as a general store and a billiard hall, and then up top, his family lived up there, and then when Florida switches to an American territory, a wealthy woman named Margaret Cook, a wealthy widow, Margaret Cook, takes over the property and turns it into a boarding house, and it stays as a boarding house through up to the 1880s at least, and it's run by single and widowed women. So we tell the history of the women, of Andres Jimenez, of the enslaved people and servants who worked at the house, and kind of it's staged and interpreted as if the people who were staying there just left. So all of the rooms look like that. Sorry for the transcriber, that was really fast, and yeah.
No, it's all right. As far as the what the goals and the mission of the museum are, especially moving forward and with changing history, where do you see the museum now, its purpose now, and kind of in the next maybe 5 years?
Oh my goodness. So
I know that's a big question.
No, it's not. I mean, like, it should be a really clear answer. Embarrassingly, our museum does not have a mission statement at this point. We've existed since the 1940s, but we're owned by the National Society of the Colonial Dames of America, kind of similar to the DAR, the Daughters of the American Revolution. And so our mission is their mission, which is like related to patriotism, historical preservation, and a third thing. But we don't have a mission statement as a museum, and it's a little embarrassing for me as someone who studied public history and anthropology. But I would love to see the museum expand. So right now, number one, I'd like to see the building preserved, and we don't have a lot of programs. So I was hired on as a 22-year-old with no boss to run all the tours and programs for the museum and create all of those with no prior historical, like there's never been a tour and programming specialist at the museum before, and it's so important because our exhibitions don't change, and so I really am pushing strongly to get involved with the community here and do more outreach programs with schools and get school kids into the museum and go and visit them. And in addition, create programs for the community. Like if there's a sewing group, I want people to know what the house is, because when you say Jimenez Facio House, you know, when I live in St. Augustine, people go, what? Where's that? And that's embarrassing. So I want it to be more of a community center. That's my 5-year goal, and I'm trying to we're a small staff. And I think most people are on board about that, but our higher-ups don't have any museum experience beforehand. They are, so they don't understand. So we're getting there.
All right.
Yeah.
And as far as integrating into the community and offering services, but also having them kind of get services from the museum, Do you find any difficulties, any resistance, or do you see a clear path?
I don't see a clear path right now. Our budgets have just been cut. I was the only person full-time to do programming, and now I'm at 32 hours, and they actually tried to cut me to 20 hours. And they kept the gardener on at 32. And so that showed to me how important tourism programs are to the dames who run the... I'm leaving in May, so I feel very open to speak like this. But that just really stressed to me where their priorities are. I think our current director does hope to see a future for our museum like that, where we are more ingrained in the community. But you know, after I leave and a couple other people leave, we'll have 4 or 5 people on our staff total. And you can't run those sorts of programs with that sort of staff unless everyone is doing programming. And we also have a social media specialist. We have, you know, like a gardener. And so we need all people to be doing programming all the time to be able to do those sorts of things or get a larger volunteer base. So I'm trying to get more volunteers involved and things like that. But it's hard when, number one, I'm 22 and I'm not getting asked up on like where my progress is on any of my programs. Nobody's asking me about how, I'm just expected to kind of like do that. And yeah, so hopefully, I hope to see that in the future, and I don't know. I think,
No, that's very good. As far you mentioned how the museum has permanent exhibits, kind of. What are different types of features, I would say, that the museum offers that you would say a traditional museum doesn't?
So I feel like house museums are a little, I mean, they are a type of traditional museum, and I think like a typical house museum, we offer like, you know, an open house. Like if you just kind of came into the street, you can see exactly what that place would have looked like, or we interpret it as what it would look like in the 1850s through 80s, so you can kind of see that glimpse into the past. Whereas if you were going to like, I'm from Missouri, so like the Missouri History Museum, it's more like, you know, artifacts behind a glass case. But for us, our artifacts are out, and you're able to like see them very closely. Our few programs that we have are unique. We have I Lived Here as Well, which tells the story of the enslaved people at the house from before the switch of the American flag. So if you guys are history students and things, so you guys maybe know about the Spanish, how the Spanish treated slaves differently than like the American period. So we really try to get out that history through performances and things. Yeah. I don't know what all we have to offer that other museums don't, but yeah.
No, that's really interesting. Talking a little bit more about today and the event that's going on here at the Calhoun Center. What brought you here today, or the museum here today?
Yeah, so I think number one, Tarine Rodriguez Bodi, she is our archivist and curator at the museum, and she has been involved with resilience since its beginning. So like the community all got together, you know, around the George Floyd situation, and was like, hey, we don't talk enough about Black history in St. Augustine. Let's create an event about that. So because of that connection with Tarine, yeah, we're here representing the museum, I guess.
All right, perfect. How has since you mentioned that was kind of like a big jumping off point, that event. So how would you say that event has influenced programming at the museum and different services that are offered?
We definitely sell more Black history books in the gift shop. So our programming, our like Black history programming began in 2019 or 2020. So like just right before the George, that was 2021? No, that was 2020. That was 2020. Okay, so then 2019 is when we started conceiving I Lived Here as Well and things, and like creating that program. The NSCDA, who I work, like they're like the dames, the older women, they never like told that story beforehand of the enslaved people who worked there. It was just like, oh, cool, female entrepreneurs, but then like those female entrepreneurs were also like slave owners. So like there was no representation of who was actually doing the work there. But I don't think the George Floyd events, have like, we haven't stayed the most relevant. Like, I read museum, digests and things, and know that a lot of people are doing more. Like, I guess our connection to the Resilience Fest is our closest action to making any serious changes, because we're just starting to incorporate Black history just right before then.
And then I wanted to ask one last question, and I'll pass it over. But what I see that the representatives of the museum are dressed a little differently. What came into that choice? Was it a fun choice? Was it just, maybe you could give more insight into that?
Yeah. So we're all dressed up to kind of draw more attraction to the museum. We used to have to dress in historical garb every day at the museum, and then leadership changed. And now we just wear it for special events and things, and when we're trying to attract people to the museum.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi.
I wanted to ask, because I know you said that you were from Missouri, and I wanted to know if the reason that you came to St. Augustine or lived here was for the museum that you work for now, or how you got involved into working in this museum, especially because you said being a St. Augustine current citizen or living here, they don't know as much about your museum.
Yeah.
So I was just curious.
Yeah. So I came here because I went to Flagler College, the liberal arts school here. They offered better financial aid than the University of Missouri, so I said I'll move. And then I discovered public history while I was here. I knew I wanted to be a museum educator before I began my college career. And then one of my friends started working at the museum, and I was like, oh, do you guys need more people? And so I worked there a little bit in college, and then I went overseas, and they wanted me. I moved back here for my partner, and they were like, come back. And I was like, yes, I would love to. So that's
awesome.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to ask you if there is anything if there's anything that would make the museum more influential nowadays, especially because I know St. Augustine has a lot of history, and I know you mentioned where you see it in 5 years, but do you think that anything it does now could remain influential, especially considering who is in charge of the museum now? Because you said the Dames are in charge of it. Do you see it continuing to be influential in any sort of way with that? I know it's kind of an
influential in what manner?
Influential for the students that do grow up here in St. Augustine,
Yeah.
the youth specifically, because I know there's a lot of trips that run out of St. Augustine, especially K through 4th grade.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope if I'm answering this incorrectly, feel free to re-guide me. So we do offer a couple. We get some 4th graders coming here for St. Augustine history and the history of Florida, and that's really exciting for me. Oh, I'm sorry, I just realized this is the microphone.
It's okay.
I didn't realize you guys even put that on me. Okay. Yes. Yeah. So we get some now, and I want to talk more with teachers. I'm preparing someone to take over my position, so I'm hoping I'm trying to lay the foundation for her and to get connected with the community of St. Augustine to provide that outreach and things like that. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm going to pass the mic back over to Emily, and then we'll wrap up.
Okay.
Yeah. I just want to give you some space for if you have any comments, anything that we maybe didn't ask you about that you'd like to talk more about. Yeah, you have the floor.
Thank you, Emily. No, I feel like I blabbered a lot. But I think it's really cool what you guys are doing, and it's very exciting. And I also want to thank whichever transcriber, or maybe whatever machine is transcribing in the future, for your hard work.
Of course. Thank you so much for your interview, and that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
We just need to get your signature in real quick.
Okie doke. Sign away my life.
So,